Alright, time to go through all the wiring stuff. Had a comment on the previous video where I got this thing running, wanting more information on the wiring side of things and how to set it all up. I'll start off with showing you how to de-pin an extra ECU connector, because when you do an EL ECU conversion in these, if you want to run the broadband, the knock, the fans, you do need to add some pins into the EA through ED ECU connector. So this is just, I think I pulled this one out of an EF. No, hang on, no, it wouldn't be an EF because it's the wrong colour. Yeah, it's most probably another EBED one then. But yeah, if you look down in the holes there, you can see the pins. And all you do is you get, in my personal way of doing it, I've got this old munted screwdriver, and I've just ground the end down to a thin pick, and then all you do, it'll be freaking hard doing it one-handed, get your pick, you slide it down into the pin there. Which bloody wire is it? This one. It's going to be extremely hard to do one-handed. And then you just fish around a little bit, put some pressure on the wire from behind. And then you flick the little tab. There's a little locking tab in there, and you just flick that like that. So if you look at the ECU connector, they're one-way specific. They've got two tabs on one side. So for the first two lines, you flick it this way, and the bottom line, you go the opposite way. And then you just, yeah, you got your bit of wire with the connector on there ready to go in the factory way. And then to put them in, like there's a red cover that slots in between, like in between the lines there. All you do with that is you just get a screwdriver or the pick or whatever, and you just quite literally just lever it out in a few spots. It'll come up far enough that you can get a grip of it, and then just pull the whole thing out. It comes out really easy. But then to add your pins, you just find an empty spot, and quite literally it's as simple as just pushing it in. If I can get it to bloody work. You hear a little click, pull back on it to make sure it's locked in, and that's it, done. For doing the EL-ECU conversion, you need, you need 4 pins. They've only got to be the light grade wire, because all you're doing is triggering an earth For the broadband, you find a switched 12 volt power source on your harness and piggyback off of that, which quite literally that's as simple as you strip a bit of the wire off, wrap your other bit of wire on it and solder them together. Give me a minute. Righto. Here's a bit of wire, got the insulation stripped back a bit, the other one that I'm going to splice in. Yet again, trying to do this shit one-handed. When you strip the wire, twist it to make it all nice and neat with no fraying bits, because those fraying bits will come back to bite you in the arse if you don't. And then you just quite literally twist them around. Solder them together, tape them up, or heat shrink over them, whichever. Done. Simple as that. There's certain things with wiring, when it comes to the tools side of things, that definitely get good quality. These are a pair of Nava wire crimpers and strippers in one. They're about, well, I don't know, with bloody bite inflation these days, but I paid about $50 for these about 3 or 4 years ago. And that's one of the things, get good quality and it'll last you. Like, I've used these a hell of a lot and they're still like A1 4 years later. To use these to strip wire, very simple. They're bloody brilliant. All you do is you get your bit of wire in between the jaws. That's it. Easy. Bloody brilliant. The other thing is a good sturdy pair of side cutters. I usually say somewhere around $15 to $20 mark is the minimum. Multimeter, much of a muchin'. You can get a cheap multimeter and it'll do just about bloody everything that an expensive one will do these days. One of the handiest functions though is that one there. That's the continuity setting. So if you want to find whether a wire is broken, or you want to trace a wire to find out whether it's the same at one end than it is the other, you have it on that setting and you bridge the two connectors. And as you hear, it makes a beep, and that tells you that yes, it is one continuous piece of wire. Besides that, soldering iron, do not cheap out on your soldering iron, you will regret it. The cheap ones, you plug it in, you use it a couple of times, you go back to use it next time, and it'll be fucked. This monstrosity I've had for over 20 years. I bought this when I was working in truck body manufacturing, doing wiring harnesses for that. And yeah, okay, it's got a bit of wood for the handle and a couple of clamps to, cover it up. But this sucker's been run over by trucks numerous times. it's been left on for like days at a time when I, you know, kind of forgot to turn the bastard off. It still works, it still rips. That back then was like $200 and something, so it was not cheap, but it's once only, you know. As I say, I've had it for over 20 years. ECU side of things. Oh, what do? Pull the wide carpet down here. It's pretty bloody hard to see, but just up behind the carpet and below the heater box, I drill through there to run the wires through, because then it's all nice and neat, hidden. Put a grommet around it, of course, where you poke any wires through. Always use a grommet. Do not run wires through bare metal. It'll end up rubbing out, shorting out, and causing chaos. These ECUs have got a plastic cover that goes over the top, and that's just a matter of pulling the tabs out as you lift it up, and that comes off. 10mm bolt separates the ECU from it, and then yeah, you got all your various pin outs there. Do I have my notes here for it? Yes. Okay. Where are we? There's one wire that you've got to chop and leave disconnected. It's to do with the climate control stuff. All this is available on the TI Performance website anyway, as a reference. Where are we? Aircon clutch. Translocker. Here we go. Pin 15 is one you've got to add for the broadband manifold. 23 is the knock sensor. Where's the other ones? On the ELs, you've got electric fan 2, which is pin 33. Signal ground, self-pass, blah, blah, blah. And then electric fan 1 is 53. And where's the knock sensor on this? Knock sensor. Knock sensor is 23. Now, that's the wiring codes, or pin-out codes. If you remember how I said there's the 2 locating tabs, well, there and there, that's to indicate which it is. So if you look at your ECU from the top, you'll see there's the 2 tabs there. So it goes 1, this is the top row, goes 1 through 20, and then the middle row is 21 through 40, and then the outer row, which when it's mounted in the car properly, the outer row will be the one that's closest to the body, and that's 41 through 60. So as I say, you just add them in and run them through. just as a note for anyone who does end up with this thing, I've added a connector here and teed off switch 12 volt and an earth, and that's going to be tucked up in the wiring. So whoever gets it in the future, if they want to run a smart lock bypass module, the wiring's all there ready to go. They just got to add a couple of connectors to the module, tee it, plug it in, and away it goes. The other thing I do with them is, especially for towing, or if you enjoy, you know, having a bit of tie frying fun, is a manual switch to override the fans to turn on. It just turns them on flat out, constant, won't shut off until you turn it off. All that is teeing into your, was it 33 and 53, I think. Yeah, 33 and 53 pins, teeing into the wires, which I've still got to do. You just put them in line with that, so as that when you turn the switch on, the fans come on, and then the other wire, like one side of the switch, will be coming from an earth point. You just take any earth point, which is any point of the body, put a connector on it, earth it out onto the body. That goes then to the switch, and then the switch creates a circuit, flows through to this wire, and then that wire gets joined in, and that's your manual override. Your fans will come on when you turn that switch on. I find it's really good for towing, because if you just let it do its thing while you're moving and towing, they tend to get way too hot before the fans kick in. So I find doing heavy towing, I actually switch the fans on myself when I see the gauge start to creep up a little bit. I usually try and switch it on by no more than like a third, or if I'm coming up to a big hill, I'll switch them on before the hill, and then once I'm back up over the hill, I'll switch them off again. Alright, so that's all that. The NOx sensor, AU is only a 2-wire NOx sensor, and the EFL is a 3, but it's pretty easy to sort out. Basically, you have the switch 12 volt power source as normal, and then your signal wire, comes out, and I think from memory, it's testing my memory, but I think you just take that, the negative side of it, straight out, and then that one goes directly to the ECU, something like that. There's guides on, I think it was the Ford Forums website anyway, on how to do that. As far as the actual engine wiring, it depends on what you're doing. If you're just keeping it dizzy and log manifold, there's actually not much to do. You can pretty much run your stock wiring harness. One thing I do though is, you know, this is my own personal preference, I modify the harness a bit and I lay it all over the top of the engine, because I fucking hate having it under the manifold. It's a pain in the ass. There's already too much crap going on under there by the time you got heater hoses and fucking coils and bloody plug leads, and it's just, it pisses me off. So yeah, I run it all on the top, which is pretty straightforward. You just got to extend your starter motor and your oil pressure wires, which that's pretty straightforward. The other thing I do is I mount the coil up on the water pump here, off the retaining bolt there. The reason I do that is twofold. Number one, makes it so much easier to change the bloody thing when it shits itself. You can do it on the side of the road in like 5 minutes. It's one 10mm bolt, unplug it, get the new one, plug it back in, 10mm bolt, done. It's way easier. Number two is it puts it in an airflow. So instead of it sitting there on the side of the block directly against, you know, hot steel, it's getting airflow. And coils like to, you know, two things electronics don't like is heat and vibration. Now, vibration, you know, can't really do much about that unless you want to stuff around and mount it on the inner guard. And even then, it's still going to have some vibration. So, yeah, I mount it there anyway. As far as the fan wiring goes, this setup is actually an EF fan, so it's a 2-plug style. Designed to run off of three relays. One of the biggest things is because of the fact that on these the plugs are over here, AUBA, they're over that side. I try and have the relays as close to this side as possible, so you haven't got extra crap running all the way over. So you've got to have your main power feed for your relays, which I use a factory fusible link, because from memory I think they're rated at like, it's either 60 or 70 amps or something, which, you know, I've never had one pop for the fans. The other way you can do it is you run separate fuse holders, and I can't stress this enough. Use one fuse per relay. One 30 amp fuse per relay. Don't have all your relays coming off of the one fuse. It will pop. It will end up giving you way too much trouble. The load of the fans kicking in, the initial load, is way too high. Plus, if they're running for a long time, it will cause excess excess resistance on the wiring, and cause it to heat to dangerous levels. Use, not ape shit, but use wire that's rated to be able to carry that much current over that kind of distance, which you got to keep in mind. You know, that's most probably 1.5 meters, maybe even 2 meters of distance from the battery to the relay block. So yeah, use good quality wire and good gauge of wire. Besides that, the rest is fairly straightforward. You know, you've got your earth, which on an EL is, you've got 4 wires going into the single plug. You don't have this other one, so it's just 2 power in and 2 earth. Yet again, good sturdy connector. Use the same gauge of wire. What I usually do is I try and find an EF or an EL that's being stripped, and I'll actually take the factory relay block out of it and the wiring and cut that up to suit, because it's made by the factory. It's designed for this purpose. It's the correct gauge, it's the correct, you know, type. Yeah, and then yeah, I just make my own, put a decent connector on it. And considering there's, you know, a handy earth point right there where the airbox goes, I usually just bolt it down underneath the airbox. Besides that, it depends on which way you're setting it up. If you want your fans to kick on while you've got your aircon on, you have to wire up one of your relays as a positive trigger to take the signal from when you turn your aircon pump on. And then the other fan you have to wire up as a negative trigger, because coming out of the ECU, all the triggers for this kind of thing are all negative. Setting up a relay is actually a very, very simple thing. A lot of people think it's all smoke and mirrors and too bloody hard, but it's very simple. See if we can get the numbers to focus. Oh, yeah, no, not really, but oh yeah, kinda. This is just a 4-pin relay. All it is, a relay is, to put it simply, a relay is a high current switch. It uses a low current, low amperage current to switch on a high current signal. So for things like, you know, fans, starter motors, headlights, any high current, you can use a light gauge switch to turn it on. And most standard type relays, you've got one straight up terminal, and then another 2 and another 1 like that. Now the one that's on its own, it's straight up and down like that, that's pin 30. That is your heavy gauge power in, so your main power in. 87 is power out, so that's to whatever you want to run, whether it be a fan, a light, you know, starter motor, whatever. And then most relays, it doesn't actually matter which terminal you use, because it will still trigger, but I think from memory it's supposed to be 85 is earth and 86 is trigger, 12 volt trigger. Could be vice versa though, but really if it's a negative trigger system, you just link these two in together. Take your 12 volt trigger wire and connect it into your 12 volt in power source, and then your negative completes the circuit and triggers it and tells it to turn on and start running whatever it's supposed to be doing. So pretty simple things. They're bloody magic, and yeah, they're good. You can get relay blocks that are pre-made. You can make them yourself. You can modify factory ones. See, the factory's got a weird way of doing shit. They use a relay to trigger a relay to backfeed another one, and it's stupid. They overcomplicate it. It's just a 4-pin relay, power in, power out, positive trigger or negative trigger. If it's a positive trigger that you're using, just the negative terminal, just go straight to body earth. If you go on eBay, you can buy somewhere in here amongst all my shit. Yeah, here we go. you can buy universal relay blocks. And buy them like pack of 10 for like fucking $12. They're just a universal unpinned relay block, and they'll come with terminals. This one's out of terminals, but it's the same thing. You put your terminal on your wire, you press your wire up in there, it clicks into place, done. They got mounting tabs on them, easy enough. You can also get relays that are like, you know, they got the mount on the relay and the relay's all pre-wired and that and ready to go, but yeah, completely up to you as to which way you go. If you're doing the broadband manifold like this, I use the standard EBED wiring harness and just modify it slightly. Pretty much what you do is you just strip back all the insulation on it, and then you have to modify where in the harness the TPS, throttle position sensor, IAC, intake idle air control, and the intake air temperature wires come out. So on the log manifold they'd be down here, and the air intake I think is about here or something. So yeah, you're just taking the wires from here, stripping it back, running them back to here, and then just retaping it all. Besides that, the other thing is the Dizzy wiring, because on the earlier type, the plug for the distributor, get the fucking camera in there, the plug for the distributor comes through at the front here, but with the different aircon pump and mounting system, the aircon pump actually sits higher on the broadband, so you can't have the plug going in like that, so you've got to have it coming in like that. So you strip back the wiring a bit, separate out the distributor side, and you just bring back the distributor wiring to about there and just retape it all. Pretty simple. Besides that, I think that's about it. Broadband, yes, as I said, you take a switch 12 volt from your harness and run it to your broadband switch. And then run your earth trigger through to the ECU and done. If you have any other queries or anything, just let me know.